So, about 5.5 to 6 months ago, I made a video titled Why the Atlanta Hawks Are Dark Horse Finals Contenders for the Eastern Conference. And there's a lot of things that I brought up in that video that I still believe to this day about this team. There's 8 or 9 guys deep that go for this Atlanta Hawks team that can score 15 to 20 points a game. And there's some young talent that in today's NBA fits really well when you look at how the pieces around Trae Young fit, whether it's John Collins, whether it's Clint Capella, Bogdan Bogdanovic is shown to be an effective piece. Danilo Gallinari was an incredible signing in free agency. And a lot of the things that I said in that video, I still hold true to this day. Now, there have been a lot of things that have happened since I made that video. The Hawks fired Lloyd Pierce and hired, or I guess made, Nate McMillan the interim head coach. They traded Rajon Rondo. Chris Dunn has not played. I don't know if he's still on the team. They did get Lou Williams on the team, which honestly one of the most underrated acquisitions throughout this season was Lou Williams going to Atlanta. But I still hold everything true that I said in that video, that I think the Atlanta Hawks are the next team to take the step in terms of being an Eastern Conference Finals contender and a NBA Finals possibility. And this has kind of been the first time we've seen Nate McMillan shine as an NBA head coach. In years past, when he was coaching the Indiana Pacers, I don't really want to say that he didn't have a good team, but a lot of the times when he got to playoff, rounds, it was either they didn't have Victor Oladipo or they just didn't have a main scoring option for him to really say is going to get the ball on an every game basis. And even with that being said, we saw guys like TJ Warren last year in the bubble go for 50 plus points under Nate McMillan, or we see guys like Miles Turner or, Domantas Sabonis flourish under Nate McMillan and become integral pieces of that franchise. In my opinion, I would think that Nate McMillan deserves to have Coach of the Year, at least, votes, just because of the fact you look at what they did after the All-Star break. They went 24-11. Actually, I think they went 25-11 in their last 36 games. And they just were one of the best teams, not only in the East, but they were one of the best teams in the entire league. And just another testament, over those last 36 games after the All-Star break, they only lost 2 games in which they were not playing a Eastern or Western Conference playoff team. I believe that was a game against Sacramento and a game against Detroit. There may have been another one in there, but either way, only losing 2 or 3 games to non-playoff opponents is what you need to be doing if you want to be considered one of the best teams in the NBA. And the Atlanta Hawks did that under Nate McMillan. Now, I think that Nate McMillan is a huge reason as to why this Atlanta Hawks team should be considered an Eastern Conference Finals threat and a threat to the Brooklyn Nets and Philadelphia 76ers to take home the rights of Finals representative for the Eastern Conference. Now, there's a few things in particular that this Atlanta Hawks team, when you look at their team statistics as to why I think they should or will be a Eastern Conference Finals representative, they do a lot of really good things. They're third in the entire NBA in terms of defensive three-point percentage. That is huge. They're fifth in the entire NBA in total rebounds, 7th in offensive rebounds, and 10th in defensive rebounds. And if they're going against a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, who have a lot of big guys, whether you look at Ben Simmons, whether you look at Tobias Harris, whether you look at Joel Embiid, Dwight Howard off the bench, there's a lot of good rebounding guys on that team. And having a team in the Atlanta Hawks who can control the boards, at least make it a 50-50 effort against that Sixers team, that helps as well. They also don't turn the ball over a whole lot. They're 9th in the entire NBA in terms of turnovers. And when you look at how well they keep other teams off the defensive glass, they let up the 4th least amount of defensive rebounds to opposing teams over the year. And they have a good defense in terms of points allowed. They're 12th in the entire NBA in points allowed, and they're 13th in the NBA in total points scored. I would go as far as to say that Clint Capella is a big reason for that defensive swing from where they were last year and even earlier in this season to where they are now. Even though his numbers show 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks, I think what Clint Capella does for this team and what he does in terms of not only being a defensive presence around the rim, but just being able to be one of the best players on the court no matter what the stat box says, I think that can go a long ways in terms of helping this team in terms of recognizing how good they actually are and how far they can go in the playoffs. And if you look at who Clint Capella is going to be going against, if they do go against the Brooklyn Nets, he's probably going to be guarded by either Kevin Durant, maybe Nicholas Claxton, maybe DeAndre Jordan. somebody that he can probably out rebound a little bit easier than maybe somebody like Joel Embiid, maybe Dwight Howard. He would have, I think, an easier time against the Brooklyn Nets than many people would give him credit for. And it's not only that. I think what the Atlanta Hawks have in terms of all of the players that they have so many guys that offensively can give them a boost that if defensively they're not getting it done against Kevin Durant, Harden, and Kyrie, they can say, screw it, we're going to score 120 points. We don't care what your big three does because we have 5 guys on the court that can literally do anything that we need them to do. And the Brooklyn Nets, no matter how good Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and James Harden are, they will never have 5 guys on the court that they can say can do everything that they need them to do because they rely on those 3 so heavily. Now, relying on those 3 so heavily is a good idea because they don't have anybody else to throw out there with them. But at that same point, when one of them gets shut down or when one of them doesn't have a outstanding game or, God forbid, 2 of them don't play well, it's not going to be a good look for this Brooklyn Nets team. Especially, I don't hate Steve Nash as a head coach, but I don't really know if he knows what he's doing yet. I don't know if any head coach in the first year that they're doing this absolutely knows what they're doing. And in the heat of the playoffs, especially going against a coach like Nate McMillan, who has been known to take teams to the playoffs and be some of the more competitive teams in the playoffs, especially in that Eastern Conference, that's a big question mark for me, especially for Steve Nash. The 2 guys, obviously, who have to have an incredible playoff run for this Atlanta Hawks team to go on an incredible playoff run is obviously Trae Young and John Collins. Between the 2 of them, they averaged about 43 points a game during the regular season. I think if they want to have that all-time playoff run and get to the Eastern Conference or NBA Finals, they need to be averaging about 50 to 55 points a game, especially when you look at the trio or duo that they're going to be going against in that Finals. They're either going to be going against... Actually, if they win this series, they'll be going against Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in the next round. So that's a duo that they are going to have to take down. And then if they do get to the Eastern Conference Finals, after beating Philadelphia and New York, they're going to be having to go against KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. And between those 3, they're probably going to pour in about 75 to 80 points for the Brooklyn Nets. So 50 to 55 points, I think, is at least the bar minimum that Trae Young and John Collins have to reach. If they're able to do it in terms of being able to stay within the offense and do that efficiently, then they're going to win the series because Brooklyn just doesn't have as much firepower as Atlanta does. Especially because of the fact that Brooklyn is really middle of the pack when you look at every defensive statistic and even some offensive statistics that they allow. They allow a lot of offensive rebounds. They allow a lot of free throw attempts. They allow a lot of three-point shots. They allow a lot of just shots in general, and they allow a lot of points. And when you're going against a team like the Atlanta Hawks who already score a lot of points, if you're telling them it's going to be easier to score, it's going to make it even harder for this Brooklyn Nets team to stop the Atlanta Hawks, especially when you look at the fact they don't turn over teams very well. They don't really rebound very well. They're a good shooting team, but they don't take a lot of shots, which is kind of weird. They're 21st in the entire NBA in terms of field goal attempts, and they allow the 5th most field goal attempts in the entire NBA. They ride their 3 superstars till the death of them, and on some nights that's going to win them games. But I think you put them in a 7-game series against the Atlanta Hawks, you ride those 3 superstars into the ground. By that time, they're probably going to have 10 to 15 games already under this belt, and I really don't know if Brooklyn could beat this Atlanta Hawks team if Atlanta is playing at their best. And so far, so good for that Atlanta Hawks team in terms of playing their best. They're 1-for-1 against this Knicks team. I think the Knicks could still pull off the win and win this in 6 or 7 games, but I really would not be upset watching this Atlanta Hawks team go to the playoffs and possibly make a run at the NBA Finals. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback from you all at this point is much appreciated. If you're new here, make sure you hit subscribe. If you're a returning subscriber, keep doing what you're doing. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.